Evening, everybody. We are live. I was about to say bang on 6 o'clock, but as we do it live, it literally went to 1 minute past on my computer screen. Hope you all had a good day. You're back from work, you're having a bit of food, and maybe catching up with us live. And tonight's a pretty cool chat. So we dropped Neil and Dom to see ya, but we have brought in Bethany. So. Bethany is our local conveyancer that works closely with us and has kindly popped on to help answer some questions, debunk some myths throughout the process. So first of all, I want to say, Bethany, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so I'm a local conveyancer working with Taylor Rose. I deal with, bog standard sales, purchases, remortgages, the lot. And I'm here locally, work obviously nationally, but primarily focusing on the local area from Hampshire, Surrey, Berkshire, and frequently working with you guys.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. We absolutely love it. And also for people who are following this or watching this now or a bit later, in the link below, and we'll drop it in the comments, Bethany's Instagram handle, so you can follow her. She's available on there to help answer questions as well and meet a bit about her and what she's doing there. So you can drop her a follow and a like on Instagram. But let's get straight to it. We got some geared up questions, haven't we, Matt?
We do, yes. And thank you from me as well, Bethany, for being here. I was joking off camera. I can't get solicitors on the phone sometimes, so let alone have one here on a live stream is great. So just wanted to ask some kind of general questions to give people an idea who maybe haven't moved in a while.
Yeah, of course.
So to start with, just wanted to ask kind of when is the right time for someone to be thinking about engaging with a solicitor?
Yeah, so when you are selling, ideally, when you say, I'm going to put the property on the market, they contact you guys. At that point, you should start filling in your forms, make sure, all your ID checks and stuff are done. You've instructed your solicitor, because then as soon as you agree that sale and you've got that buyer ready, chomping at the bit, we've already got the paperwork. We can go, here you go. And then it's firmly in the buyer's court. Similarly, if you're looking to buy, even if you have a rough idea of how much you want to buy for your actively seeking viewings, again, that's going to make you so much more desirable to a seller, I'm sure. They're on the ball, they've got their paperwork done. It's a case of, okay, I'm ready to go. As soon as you get that pack of paperwork to me, let's go, which you often find that at the beginning of a transaction, it's the initial stages that you're just waiting for everyone to instruct their conveyancer. And it stops you guys sending out the memo if they haven't got a conveyancer sorted already. So ASAP, the sooner you can do it, the better. It'll make things go much quicker that way.
I feel like once every sale's agreed, I'm sure you find this as well, Dan, there's a stage where everyone's like, oh, great, the sale's agreed. I need to speak to a solicitor and fill out the paperwork, and doing it on the back foot. Whereas what you're saying is absolutely right, to do it in advance, so the ball's straight in the buyer's court as soon as it's agreed. Love that.
I think it's so important, isn't it? I completely agree. If you've got a buyer on board that's already got their solicitor ready, it means they're prepared. I can't understand who wouldn't prepare themselves if you're buying the biggest thing you're probably going to buy ever. So make sure you've got that in place as a buyer, and obviously as a seller, make sure you've got it in place before you've got a buyer, because you can start getting some of the paperwork sorted, can't you?
Definitely.
Yeah, so it
makes things a lot more smooth.
Yeah.
Now, we mentioned this off camera a little bit, and I realized in the last question I referred to you as a solicitor, but that perhaps isn't correct. So I was wondering if you could...
Not quite correct.
The difference between a conveyancer.
Yeah, so...
What are you?
A human being. I'm a conveyancer, so I'm a licensed conveyancer. I'm licensed by the CLC. I can still work, under a solicitor firm or a licensed conveyancer firm. Essentially, a solicitor is someone who's gone to university for the 3 years. Typically, they've done a 2-year training contract and they've gone through several different specialisms. And then they go ahead and pick, right, okay, I want to work in conveyancing for the rest of my life, or family law. Whereas conveyancing, I've specifically gone and studied for 2 years just about conveyancing. So all the nitty gritty, specific details. So a licensed conveyancer is essentially a legal specialist in conveyancing. So with my qualifications, I can only ever go and work in conveyancing. So it's a bit of more of a niche qualification than sort of the general overview you'd get doing a law degree.
So it's like a property specialism.
Yeah, it's literally conveyancing as a property law. You get called a property lawyer or a licensed conveyancer once you've done the qualification. So it's very specialised to conveyancing and exactly these kind of transactions that you deal with every day.
Yeah. And so then I guess on that basis, it's better for people to seek out a conveyancer like yourself rather than just Googling property solicitor. I imagine that's what most people would do.
Definitely. I think there's a bias towards solicitor. They've been at university, they've got, years behind in a degree. But in order to become a licensed conveyancer, you have to have had and have to have it signed off a specific amount of work experience in the path that you're going into. So I want to say it equates to about 6 months full time, I think. So obviously you have to know the knowledge and you have to be able to say, yes, I know how to do this. And someone else in your firm has to sign it off as well. So you have to prove you have that knowledge. Whereas training contracts, you obviously do training contract to learn what to do. And that's post-qualification as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So conveyancers and solicitors. I'll be conscious to say conveyancer now going forward.
Well, that's what you want, isn't it? It's an expert in what you do, which is the idea of it. So it makes a big difference. We certainly see it. So again, we're just saying people don't know this, but we work really closely with Bethany, and what makes a big difference, we have a WhatsApp group, don't we?
Yeah, so we do.
Know just high level what's going on with the transactions, what we can do to help and communicate, which I think is a really important part. And I'm pretty sure, Matt, one of the questions was around communications between agents and conveyancers, wasn't it?
So why do agents and solicitors not collaborate? When I first got into the business, I couldn't understand why these two parties who are meant to have the same shared goal, why is there so much friction? And obviously I think there isn't, but with a lot of conveyancers there are.
Yeah, I think it's largely down to capacity, and a lot of firms are very much high value, or they are very much high volume. They like to take on as much work as possible, which I understand given especially over the last 2-3 years, the change in the property market. I mean, it's constantly changing rather than following the standard sort of traditional busy periods in the year. So I think a lot of people are like, I have that much work to do. I mean, I've been guilty of it in the past. When I've worked at other firms, it's churn the work out as quick as you can, and you don't have time to update agents. But I think it's, if you stop and realise, actually, if I keep the agent in the loop, they can usually do a bit of chasing on my behalf. They can go try and whip around the rest of the chain. They can tell the seller to get his paperwork back. It's definitely worth having that collaboration. I mean, looking at the files I have with you guys, it makes it so much easier to go, we're fighting the same battle. It's, in reality, we are interlinked. Even bringing it down to, I don't get paid until the matter's done. You don't get paid until the matter's done. We're both on the same fighting front, and more than anything, we all just want everyone to be in their new home or to have their new buy-to-let, get it all sorted. And the sooner it's done, the happier everyone is. And again, massively down to capacity. And I think when you have more, agent conveyancer relationships or agent solicitor relationships, you know exactly what you need from everyone. Whereas if you have a lot of the big factory conveyor belt kind of conveyancing firms will have 1 million people on a file. You don't know who you need to contact. Whereas, especially with me, I mean, we've got a group chat. You've got me and my assistant in the chat. You can just message and say, this address, what's going on? And vice versa. I mean, you get it plenty of time. I'll just go, right, local authority's back now. and you guys know what's going to happen then.
Yeah, it makes the biggest difference. I think a couple of things you mentioned there, key things is, yeah, if we're on the same team and if we're able to collaborate and work together closer, it's just a case of trying to help both the buyer and the seller maybe understand things, or actually that's an important thing to get back now. And we've got those as agents, we tend to have those relationships with them a little bit closer because we've been with them from the start. So I think it is so important to do that. And my experience, as you mentioned, you use the word factory conveyance and belt conveyance.
Yes.
I won't say it, it's like a mouthful, but it's so true. There are some which often are cheaper, so it's lucrative to go with them, but they're just, yeah, you just get turned over and turned over. And experiences can be quite bad. I've seen from buyers and sellers' points of views with contact and communication, which is what the three of us really want to do, isn't it? We love to communicate and make sure everyone's
Exactly
up to date.
that.
It's so important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also, I was thinking this the other day, people see our boards when they drive around, people see estate agent boards, and there's kind of people know about local agents. You don't get the same with a solicitor. So I understand when people just go onto Google and look for the cheapest solicitor. I understand why people do that, but all solicitors are not the same. So I think that's an important message about the factory conveyancers, is you could be one of 100 cases.
Exactly that. And cheapest isn't always best. And the same thing, the most expensive isn't always the best. But I mean, you guys know the service that my clients get. For me, it's, you do get what you pay for. I'm not dramatically expensive and I'm not exactly cheap either. But you know, from start to finish, you're going to be dealing with me. You're not going to be dealing with anyone else. Yeah. So I think that makes a massive difference, especially with you guys and clients.
And there are so many mini checkpoints, aren't there, through the course of a transaction? It's on average, 3-4 months of quite a lot of stress and anxiety for the client. There are so many mini checkpoints. So, you know, if we can do our bit of just updating the client every step of the way, I just think it makes all the difference to the whole experience.
Yeah, it definitely does.
Cool. So agents and solicitors collaborating. I love it.
Hey,
so we had a question.
Yeah,
it's the new world. We had a question in on Instagram, just asking what can be done to speed up transaction times. I know there's no average transaction. I know I mentioned 3 or 4 months a minute ago, but if for buyers or sellers, what are some kind of top tips for just generally speeding up the transaction?
So again, it kind of varies from sort of selling to buying. For selling, making sure you've got as much as your paperwork ready, even if it's when you go into market, should probably kind of be the indicator. I'll go and have a look around, make sure I've got all of my certificates for anything, making sure that, you know, you respond to your conveyancer on time. I know sometimes you can send a list of questions from a buyer to them and it'll take them a week, 2 weeks. I mean, if you're on holiday, enjoy your holiday. I'm not too bothered. But, you know, if they're just sat there and then they kind of go, what's going on? Why is nothing moving? Well, we need your replies to inquiries. The amount of times, you know, stuff can kind of just be sat there and you're like, well, you know, if you want it to go quicker, you have to act proactively. So, like, the more information you can provide at the start of the transaction, the less questions you're going to get. I mean, I was saying to Dan the other day, I've only raised 4 inquiries on one file, which it depends on who's issued the contract pack. If, you know, you've got all the information from the seller, there'll be very, very minimal inquiries. So the quickest, you know, communication is key. Responding as soon as you can. And then with buying, make sure you've got your mortgage offer either in place, or, you know, you're frequently chasing your mortgage broker to say, right, have you got this back yet? What's the next step? Making sure you get your paperwork back, because a lot of it will be ready. We'll have replies to inquiries, but we need your signed paperwork. And I think, again, it varies from firm to firm, but some firms will accept a scanned copy of the signed document. Some will be hard copy. I like both. If we've got the scan, that's great to kind of go off, as long as I know I'm getting the original.
What are the legalities of that, the scan versus original? So I've never understood.
So it depends. It's not necessarily the legality, it's more firm policy. So
Right.
every firm operates slightly differently. So some firms I've worked at have been, we'll accept the scan as long as we've got the little Royal Mail tracking to say that your contract's on the way to us. That's fine. But similarly, with a contract, so the contract can actually be signed by the conveyancer. A lot of conveyancers will probably hate me for saying that, but you can. But again, it's firm policy. Some firms will say, right, okay, as long as the client has given you the full authority to exchange, which we should always get anyway, and we know they're happy to go ahead, say we've already got their signed transfer or their signed mortgage deed, you know, they've shown commitment to the transaction, they've already paid their deposit to us, we can sign the contract on their behalf. So it's not a case of, I don't want to do it. A lot of solicitors, conveyancers won't want to do it because it's becoming more regular now to either exchange on a scan copy with the original on the way, or for you to just sign it. If the client's already posted it or you've got a scan and you prefer to sign it yourself to say, right, okay, the client's agreed that I can do this, it is possible. I mean, everyone would like to have all of the original documents back. I know the sooner I send them out, the sooner I'm going to get them back. So 9 times out of 10, I've got them when I exchange anyway. But it shouldn't be the be all and end all to proceeding with the transaction, because not, you know, the client will tell you if they're not happy to proceed anymore. And there are so many check-in points, as you rightly said, to kind of go through the transaction. I mean, I've got a checklist the length of my arm to go, right, okay, this is what we need back when we need it back. This is kind of the general how to.
By the way, is it a long arm?
I'm 5'2", so they're not very long.
You got
long enough.
Down your arms.
yeah, it's all down my arm. But yeah, it's long enough. So I think communication is key, and actually listen to us. Don't listen to the fear mongering. Don't listen to, you know, what's going on in the media. A lot of scaremongering, which I'm sure you'll see day to day from buyers and sellers. They're like, oh, well, it's, you know, the prices are going to drop. Oh, they're going to hike again. Oh, the mortgage rates are scary, which I understand. But as you've said before, there's always going to be someone selling and there's always going to be someone buying. Not everyone wants to live in the same house forever. You know.
Good point.
Yes, ups and downs, isn't it? All the time. But yeah, and if the market's changed, but you know, we just got to carry on and do what we do. So I really like the point you made about getting paperwork back quickly, because I think sometimes people can complain about solicitors and estate agents, but if the paperwork is sat there unattended to for a week, it's like, well, that's
just a week extra, isn't it?
Yeah.
right.
Exactly.
And then you've got to think about post as well. I mean, when we had the Royal Mail strikes, it was fine. You know, you expected the delay in things coming back, but then, you know, if someone's, you know, I'll send it back, and then they don't, and then it does get to the point where it's crucial, where a seller said, right, okay, you've got to exchange now or it's falling through, you know.
Well, I had that last week. Buyers said they set a deadline on it because things weren't sent back, and it was a simple case of something being signed and sent, but they didn't realise how important it was, even though they'd been told. So I just think the best thing, like you say, is if you've got something to do, just get done as a buyer or a seller, and then you'll be that much closer to it all being nice and easy when you're ready to exchange contracts and move in.
Exactly that.
Cool. Well, I know we said we'd keep these to about 20 minutes. However, I've just seen we've had some comments, and I'm always asking people for comments, so I don't want to ignore them.
No, don't ignore them.
So Lauren and Ryan, off of West Reading fame, what's the best way for an agent to help assist a solicitor or a conveyancer during the process?
Great question. So if, in all honesty, if you, obviously we keep you guys up to date, if you can kind of, we'll let you know kind of what the next steps are. Obviously, the more and more we work together, the more you kind of get the gist of what the next step is, what we kind of need next. It's kind of that double, like 2-pronged attack. I've said, I've copied you in on an email to say it to the client to say, here's my report, here's what I need back from you in the post. If you can kind of leave it a couple of days and then go, just checking in, have you sent this back to your conveyancer yet? Or if it's a case of, we need a little bit more in terms of, have you got this information? If you happen to know someone that knows that or deals with that specific particular area, kind of saying to the client, okay, this is what Beth said, this is what Beth needs. Do you have that? Do you know where to get it from? If you guys kind of know whether it's we need a gas inspection because it's a tenanted property, if you guys have the contacts, maybe saying to the client, okay, I know you've been asked this. I know these 3 people in the local area, they can help you. Because in the end, it works for everyone. If you know someone and it's going to make things go a little bit quicker, it's all about kind of speeding things up, but also providing a solution rather than asking the client, have you got this document? Do you know where to get the document? This is generally where you can find it, kind of thing. Being proactive, so to speak. So even when you get to the point of they've come to you, they've said they're selling their property. Okay, have you filled in this? Have you done that? Have you done that? It's kind of like almost like a pre-sale agreed checklist. It's kind of handy. Like I've said to Dan and Neil before, I've sent the TA6 and the TA10 and the TA7 and said, if you have these kind of properties, get them to fill this in. And then, especially when they're ones that are coming to me, then they've already got them. They've already filled them in. As soon as the day they instruct, and as long as I've got the memo, I can send the draft contract pack out straight away. It makes things so much easier and it runs a lot more smoothly, really.
Yeah, I love that. And I think because of how me and Dan work, obviously we're taking ownership of the whole process. But I think agents sometimes can just sling it off to the solicitor and that's job done. Whereas what you're saying is to be a bit more foresightful and kind of see problems before they arise. Love that. Cool.
We've got quite a few questions here. We have to rattle through these now, Laura, and you have to give one word answers.
Sanjay, what top 3 things do we need to know when choosing a conveyancer?
I'd say big things to look at. Go on, have a look on Trustpilot, have a look on their social media. I mean, some people work with brands like myself. I work with a firm. I don't work for a firm. So for me, I have my own Instagram. So I post testimonials, etc. Some firms, people who are directly employed, they will have Trustpilot. You can go and have a scroll through the firm's reviews. Clients often name drop. You can have a look at who you're getting. I think it's very important. So look at their feedback, because you don't want someone who's had one good review and 20 million really bad reviews. You want to go with someone you can trust. I'd say you need to look at thinking about it, really. Have a look. If you've got a name to it, like, can you put the face to the name? You don't want some faceless person. You want someone that you're going to have that communication with, who you can build that trust with. Like, my clients trust me and I know they'll come back because they've had the service that they need. So I think those are the top kind of 2. And then look to your agent. Who did your agent recommend? Because I think that speaks volumes, because they deal with everyone day in, day out. They know who to contact. They know who's quick at replying. Obviously, if I did a bad job, it'd be you guys they're going to and saying, come on, that conveyancer's horrendous. I don't get any communication back. And I think that's key. I think the estate agent voice needs to be heard in that regard, because, you know what you're going to get and you know what your clients are going to get. And you're not going to recommend someone who's going to do a shoddy job, because it's just more earache for you in the end, more than anything. So you're not going to recommend someone who isn't good at their job.
Yeah, so that shared goal thing again. Absolutely.
Yeah. Good answers.
Exactly that, yeah.
Georgina, Georgina's given us a question. What's the average time from sale agreed to completion? And how long is a piece of string?
And how long do I-
Well, I think it depends on the two firms you've got acting, to be honest. If you've got a local, it doesn't even have to be local. If you've got someone who is, you know, one-on-one with the client, but then you have your factory sort of conveyancing belt firm who tend to be slower than others and tend to get passed around quite a lot. A lot of firms tend to go for the, I'll report when everything's back. And that's the thing that takes the time, because then you've got to wait for everyone to send everything back and you'll be 6, 7, 8 weeks down the line and it's a nightmare. But if you kind of, like for me, I report as I go along. So if I've had the bulk of the searches back and I'm just waiting on one, I'll report on the ones I've got. And then it's just a case of, oh, we've had the local in, there's no more questions. I'm happy to go towards exchange if you are. And you've already got the signed documents back. So I think for me, like my average, I'm ready, obviously subject to buyers solicitors. My aim is 4 to 6 weeks being ready to exchange. But that's subject to a chain and subject to a seller or a buyer's solicitor. But the ideal is 4 to 6 weeks, which the national average, I think, from sale agreed to completion pre-pandemic was 6 to 12 weeks. It's more like 16 to 20 weeks now, the national average. So
definitely high, isn't it, at the moment?
It's
really
changed.
high. Yeah. But I will say, just to back,
It's a massive difference.
The new sales we've had put together with you in January, probably only 2 to 3 weeks ago, are all well on their way to a potential exchange in the next 3-4 weeks. So it definitely has seen a marked difference in working with you, which has been great.
Yeah, amazing. And it can be done, can't it? You know, I've had a few transactions recently when everyone's on the ball, when all the paperwork comes back quickly, you can do it in 6 weeks. Yeah.
Definitely. I think it's highlighting ones that, you know, if for you guys, if the buyer and seller are coming to ask for you, obviously I can't act for both. I can act for one or the other. But it's knowing, no, Beth isn't on this one, but I have a couple of others that I know are good and they are reliable. And I think it's also making sure that you use them as well, because having one good person and then a really shoddy person, or someone who, you know, has too high of a capacity, it then becomes you just get a bottleneck of who's like where.
Yeah, you're only as strong as your weakest link kind of thing.
Exactly that.
Yeah. Do you think there's any value in, at the beginning of a transaction, an agent like setting a target completion date? Because I'm always doing that, even if it's not, you know, the chain isn't complete or something. I'm always like, let's have a date in our minds. But then, you know, it's all subject to change, I
I'd
guess.
say it's valuable, but only if the chain is closed and everyone kind of knows the position of everyone. I think if it's open chain and no one within that chain is willing to break chain temporarily, I think then there's no point in having an estimated completion date or an estimated exchange date. I think, you know, everyone's going to kind of have a different opinion on when things shouldn't be. And I think when we had the sort of 6 to 12 week sort of rough national average, it was a lot easier to set an estimated date. Whereas now every firm is different. How quickly everyone acts is completely different. So it's kind of hard to set a realistic date. I mean, you can find, I don't know if you guys find it as well, but if you set an estimated completion date and then have a client go, well, that was 2 weeks ago, they can be a bit funny about it, which I think it sometimes can create a rod for our own back, to be honest. It just gives them something to beat you with. Oh, well, we had this estimated date and you've not made it. And it's can be frustrating for all parties involved.
Yeah, I guess managing expectations. Absolutely. So I'm conscious the time's getting on. I'm going to skip past a few of the questions because I feel like we've kind of answered them already. But this question from Mr. Macbeth, I was particularly interested in.
I am.
Any sign of the blockchain coming into the legal world to speed things up? Now, for people watching who don't know what the blockchain is, the blockchain is the technology beneath Bitcoin, which has been talked about in the property world, in the land registry is going to be on the blockchain or something like that, or there's going to be some kind of tech-based solution for the land registry. Is that the right way of saying it?
Yeah, the land registry is the right one. I think, especially recently, we've had a lot of land. Like, if you put an application in at the land registry, they have done great in terms of it's all digital. You know, you can download most documents instantly, which is fantastic. But applications, I think for them, it's a massive staffing level issue where they went on, I think it was last week they went on strike. It might have been last week, the week before. A lot of them went on strike and they don't answer the phones on certain days of the week. You can be sat on hold for hours, like lenders trying to get through to them. It'd be very handy if blockchain did happen because, you know, a lot of registrations are taking upwards of a year. If you look on a new build, it's taking them a year, 18 months. Some people have got 2024 return dates.
It's funny
as
you say
estimated dates.
I've had a few sales where people have bought a home, new build ones, 2-year fixed mortgage company state looking to sell it, and we've got an issue selling the home because they're not the registered people on the title.
Exactly that. It's, you can only get them expedited for certain reasons as well. If you are selling it again, you can submit a copy of the sales memo and you can usually get it expedited within sort of 10 working days. So they have to complete the registration within that time frame. But then you've also got people who want to remortgage, but a lot of lenders can't offer your mortgage if they don't see that the title register has been updated, but you can't get the title register updated until you've got a mortgage offer. So it's a catch-22. So any sort of technical advances would be much appreciated on that front. But then again, you know, it's also finding conveyancers that are willing to move forward into the future and into the tech world, because you have a lot of firms that are still heavy paper based. I mean, especially in conveyancing, you kind of have to be paper light because you do have certain original signed documents, but a lot of it is a case of thick, inches thick, people who still print off every single email for a file. I couldn't live with that myself. But, you know, it's all well and good blockchain coming in, but you've got to have everyone nationally, well, England and Wales say, yes, we will move forward and work with whatever new process they've got, because no doubt it'd be completely different to how land registry do it now. And a lot of people were still reluctant to do it when land registry made their changes to online as well. So it's a catch-22.
When was
sorry, Matt.
Sorry, when did the land registry kind of go digital? Was it?
So they've been digital for, in terms of downloading documents, they've been digital for as long as I've been in conveyancing. So a long time. But in terms of online applications, you used to have to type in an AP1 form in a Word doc or a PDF and then scan it in with a scan of every single document and then upload it into their system. And now you have a digital AP1 form, which you fill in on the computer, and you can track it with an estimated return date, any requisitions, the land registry. It's kind of like almost like a pipeline of all of your registrations, when they're due back, when you made the application. Whereas before it was a case of you did it through their portal, which you still do, but it's just a different side of the portal. And you'd have to go and search the title number or the land registry reference to go and find out on the applications list where it is and where it's at. But you wouldn't get an estimated return date unless you phoned them. So it's it's better, but it's not fixed the problem.
As I say, I think all of these points with blockchain and moving into the future, at some point it's got to happen, and it will happen, because solicitors will need to move forward, and everyone will get involved in it, much like we're trying to do in our estate agency world, in terms of the service we offer and using video and marketing via social media. That the world has changed. So I think you will see a drastic change maybe over the next 5 years, and everybody doing things differently, but for the better. So it's about time that everyone gets on board with it, because I think the train's only going in one direction, isn't it? So it's not going to go backwards.
Which I know I just had this on the screen, but it's funny, faxes need to be banned, but people are still sending faxes, right? I just can't get my head around it.
I can't get my head around it either. I mean, there's obviously emails can be intercepted, everything could be intercepted at this point. But I think the main thing for faxes are bank details. They usually go in the post or via fax. I mean, it's firm policy. Some conveyancers or solicitors are happy to just send them on an email, put them in their initial letter, or send them via post. I mean, if it's that big of an issue, send it via post. But faxes, a lot of it's driven by the lenders. So some lenders have thankfully made the move to lender exchange and LMS, where a lot of lenders are kind of grouped together and they've got all of their redemption statements, all of like the correspondence on there. But now you still have the few more niche lenders Barclays has only just gone on to lender exchange within the last year. So, it's those kind of people who are like, no, we want you to fax us. I mean, you will literally type out a letter and digitally send it via fax. We don't use an actual fax machine anymore. It's a fax that's sent via email. So, it's just like sending an email. I definitely agree with Ian there. They need to be banned. It just needs to be gone, because they're just an added nightmare, to be honest, because they just claim they haven't received them half the time anyway.
I think it's maybe a sign the blockchain thing is going to take a little longer than we'd all like, because I mean, if we're still,
I think so.
Now it's probably getting rid of an old system, and then with a new one, it's just change takes time.
Definitely.
Yeah, cool. Well, we've gone way over time. It's been super interesting.
Yeah.
And I hope everyone watching has found it useful. So, Bethany, we'd love to have you back sometime. I think we're on week 3 or week 4, Dan, of Rates and Ladders.
I think this is week 4.
Week 4.
Yeah, I think so. I might be wrong. I missed 1 week and I feel like I've been on it twice, and this is the 3rd one.
Which makes me the only one at 100% attendance. So,
well, we'll see what happens for next Tuesday, because it is Valentine's Day. So I might not be available at 6 o'clock in the evening. I'll be cooking.
Yeah, let's hope Neil doesn't get himself a girlfriend in the next week. But no, thanks to everyone who's been watching. Thanks for all the comments, and we'll see you all again next Tuesday.
Yeah. Cheers, guys. Thanks, Bethany.
Thank you.